Khalujaan, Naseeruddin Shah, and his nephew Babban, Arshad Warsi, who are partners in crime, pose as a Nawab and his attendant, and manage to run away with a prized necklace from a jewelry shop. During the police chase, they get separated. Babban escapes. Khalujaan is injured, and the necklace seemingly lost. Babban goes to meet his boss Mushtaq Bhai Salman Shahid, who disbelieves him, accuses him of double-crossing his boss in cahoots with his uncle Khalujaan, gives him a death sentence, and orders him to dig his own grave. Babban duly begins to dig a grave under supervision, but manages to escape, with the promise that he will bring back both the necklace and Khalujaan. Udharan. Months later, Babban comes across Khalujaan, who is posing as a Nawab and attending a poetry contest. It is a mushaira gathering of poets, organized by Begum Para, Madhuri Dixit, the widowed Begum of Majidabad, supposedly in compliance with the wishes of her deceased husband. The winner of the poetry contest will not only win the widowed Begum as his bride, and also become the Nawab of Majidabad. Udharan. Babban confronts Khalujaan on the opening night of the contest, and tries to get him to return with him. However, Babban himself delays departure after falling in love at first sight with Munia Huma Qureshi, Begum Para's beautiful maid and constant companion. Meanwhile, Khalujaan has his task cut out. He needs to fool the gathering into accepting him as an aristocrat of high lineage, win the poetry contest if possible, and seduce the Begum whether or not that happens. One of the other contestants is a local politician and gangster named Jan Muhammad Vijay Raz, who is holding the poet Nawab Italvi Manoj Pava in captivity, forcing him to write poetry for Jan to recite at the contest. The contest proceeds, while Khalujaan has his heart set on Begum Para herself. Babban is smitten with Munia. Khalujaan tries to impress the Begum by gifting her the prized necklace which he had stolen earlier. But on the final day, Begum declares Jan Muhammad to be the victor. She declares that she will marry Jan Muhammad and that he will become the new Nawab of Majidabad. Udharan Chinna. Since the necklace has clearly failed to move the Begum, Khalujaan decides to see if a gun will serve the purpose better. However, even as he approaches the Begum brandishing his chosen instrument of persuasion, he finds the dowager being hustled away at gunpoint by a masked man. Khalujaan chases them and blocks their way only to discover that the masked man is none other than his nephew Babban. It turns out that the Begum had plotted her own kidnapping in order to extort money from the Nawab-elect, Jan Muhammad. More twists are then revealed. The Begum was nothing but a dancing girl, courtesan, who had seduced a middle-aged Nawab and married him, only to find that the Nawab was actually a pauper who supported his lavish way of life by selling his inherited properties and jewels. He also neglected his wife, who, it is very strongly suggested, developed a relationship of intimacy with a sympathetic maidservant, Munia. Udharan. By the time the Nawab died of good living, he had become completely bankrupt and even his palace had been mortgaged to the money-lenders. After his death, the penniless Begum had been helped financially and courted actively by Jan Muhammad, who was besotted with her. He also wanted the title and status of being the Nawab of Majidabad. If a mere dancing girl could marry an aging Nawab and swan around being feted and fawned over as Begum of Majidabad, then Jan Muhammad, of a similar social background, could likewise climb into the same status by marrying the same girl. Now a dowager, the Begum was appalled by this idea. Jan Muhammad is a man of low birth and uncultured mannerisms, a former street thug turned politician, with an entourage of sycophantic hoodlums. The idea of marrying such a man was repellent to the Begum, who was anyway in love with her maid-servant. Yet, Jan Muhammad's death and his persistence leave the Begum with no choice but to announce a competition for her suitors, as a tactic to delay responding to Jan's advances. Udharan. Thus, the Mashiara was conceived of an elaborate hoax. The late Nawab had never wanted that his widow should marry someone else, much less that the winner should be recognized as Nawab of Majidabad. It was the Begum's own idea, the purpose being to snare a rich man and marry him. The Begum did not want to marry Jan Muhammad, but she wanted his money. Therefore she was staging a kidnapping in order to receive a ransom from Jan Muhammad. She has employed Babban to act as her kidnapper and extort a hefty ransom from Jan Muhammad, who was expected to pay up because otherwise he would never fulfill his dream of becoming a Nawab. Udharan. Babban duly phones Jan Muhammad, who is by now aware of the Begum's cunning plan, to bring a ransom of Rs. 100 million rupees, about $2 million in 2014, in cash to the railway station. All four of them, Begum, maid, and the uncle-nephew duo, reach the railway station to collect the money, but find that they are surrounded by Jan Muhammad's goons. To their good fortune, Nawab Italvi arrives with a police force and cross-firing ensues. Begum and Munia escape from the situation, leaving Babban and Khalujaan behind to be arrested. Udharan Chennai. 2 months later, the uncle-nephew duo get bail and, as they leave the jail, they are given a letter from Begum and Munia. It is a cheeky letter of thanks and goodbye from the women, informing the men that they have sold the priceless necklace and used the proceeds to buy a house and settle down in a faraway town whose name they withhold. Uncle and nephew are now exactly at the same situation where they were at the start of all these shenanigans. The movie ends with the duo once again surrounded by Mushtaq Bhai and his gang. Udharan.